Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this live Cascade Copper event. I'm joined by their president and CEO, Jeff Ackert, who will discuss what you can expect from the company in 2025. Now, this is an interactive event, so please feel free to submit your questions using the chat feature in the bottom right corner of your screen. This event is also being recorded and will be made available shortly after we finish here today. With the housekeeping out of the way, thank you for taking the time out of your day, Jeff. Now, your strategic vision for 2025 includes both drilling and advancing projects to drill-ready status. What key milestones should investors be watching for throughout the year?
Yeah, Kyle, thanks for the invite and happy to be here. Yeah, as far as milestones for 2025, lots of things happening here. So I'll just sort of check them off as we go here. But the first thing is more corporate-wise is we do have an open financing right now. So when we close that $500,000 financing, that'll be sort of one of our first milestones, and it will drive the rest of the events over the rest of the years. And for each of the projects, maybe I'll just kind of make a little tick box for each one of those. So number one is at Rogers Creek, which is our flagship property. We expect to see approval of the drilling permit, which will then give us the ability to get on the ground and do the drilling in 2025. So two very important milestones at the Rogers Creek project. Next would be Copper Plateau. Every time we look at it, we really get more and more excited about it because it's got some great components here. And so milestones there would be a completion of our sort of in-house three-dimensional inversion modeling and modeling of the deposit that we see there, but also developing an exploration program for 2025, which at this stage looks to me to be a little bit of ground geophysics, some more mapping and sampling, but ideally it's working towards some target generation and perhaps even some drilling in 2025. That's at Copper Plateau. Next would be Centerfire. Centerfire is our Ontario project, and we would like to see there completion of the permitting to allow us to drill, but also, and maybe we'll talk about this later, is the OJEP financing that we've just announced in a recent press release. And what that is basically, the government is basically matching some exploration dollars that we spend. So that will mean that we can do some airborne geophysics, and the geophysics there will be the next step to help us define drill targets, which maybe we can even drill in 2025 at Centerfire. And then the two other projects are a little bit less advanced in the exploration. So we'd like to do boots on the ground exploration on the Fire Mountain in British Columbia and the Bendor project, which is just north of Pemberton. So look for some milestones when we talk about getting some boots on the ground exploration and some more results from those two projects. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we expect to see and do over the next year.
Can you elaborate on Centerfire and how will the OJEP-funded geophysics program help redefine or refine rather your drill targets compared to the high-grade channel samples you've already identified?
Yeah, well, we certainly have a focus at this point, but when we look at the property at Centerfire, we see so much potential along strike. And when I say along strike, it's up to 4 to 5 kilometers of indication of a similar kind of conductor that we have at the main zone. So what we want to do is be sure that we've identified the best parts of that conductor trend before we get the drill on it. So the OJEP funding of the airborne geophysics will help us detail that strike length of what we see as the extension of the main zone mineralization. So we do really like what we see at Centerfire.
So looking at your key initiatives for 2025, you have a lot of projects in the work. How do you plan to balance the advancement of early stage projects like Fire Mountain while maintaining focus on your planned drilling programs?
Yeah, well, it is a challenge when you do have a lot of projects, and how do you sort of allocate where you're going to put resources and so on. But we like the fact that we've got this pipeline of projects in the company, Cascade, and they're all at different stages of development. What we will do is try to advance each one of those projects over the year. Ones like Rogers Creek and Centerfire and Copper Plateau, they're a little bit higher up in the evolution of the project. So those are the ones that we like to spend more money and a bit more time, because those are the ones that will give us, when drilling or target generation, those are the ones that are going to give us the best kick on the road in the markets, and then, reward the shareholders for, sticking with us for so long. They can hopefully see a little appreciation of the share price as we work on the whole portfolio, but, allocate more or less to each one, depending on where we think we're going to get the best kick for our investment dollar.
So your recent corporate actions have focused on preserving cash through share-based payments. How does this approach support your strategic objectives for 2025?
Yeah, well, I mean, our objective mandate for the company in general is to keep the share issuance at a reasonable level. Having said that, we decided that at the time, late last year, that it was more advantageous for us to issue shares directly to the optioner of the properties, or the optionee of the properties, and they're great partners, very amenable to taking some of our shares, because they understand that we're good partners, we're going to do good work, and the shares that they receive will be worth something more down the road. But as I said, our mandate is still to try and keep a good lid on the share structure of the company. In other words, keep it very tight, very small, so that when we do have some success in exploration, then the share price should, appreciate in a good amount. So yeah, that's kind of, it's a balance. Where do we spend our money? How much shares do we put out? And that's one of the reasons why we've really just gone out to, with a $500,000 financing at this point. The idea being that with some exploration success and some appreciation in the market, our share price then will be slightly higher. And if we do go back and we will go back to the markets for funding sometime this year, then our share price will be higher, less dilution down the road. So that's sort of the mandate of the company still at this point.
So let me ask you this. What do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges in executing your vision across the 5 projects in 2 different provinces?
Yeah, the challenge is not only doing the work on the projects, and we really believe that all of our projects have some great opportunity. Otherwise we wouldn't have put them into the portfolio in the first place. So getting work done on the ground is a challenge. We've got a relatively small window of accessibility on a number of them. Having said that, though, the access to most of our projects is actually by road, so we can get up and take our drill and drive the drill right to the site, and then drill on our targets without any issue, which is an advantage compared to, say, other parts of British Columbia. The further north you go, the less access you have, and then the high altitude stuff is high cost, helicopter borne drilling, but we don't have to deal with any of that with our projects at the moment. So the other challenge is communication too. I mean, it's all about telling your story, right, to your shareholders and new shareholders and prospective new shareholders. So we do spend some money on that kind of thing, on communication. And just to let your viewers and listeners know that we are going to be at the PDAC this year. We do have a booth number 2805, and welcome anybody to stop by and say hello while they're at the PDAC. So, communication is important. Working with you at Six and others to, keep people abreast of what's happening with the company, telling the story, and hopefully, the one-to-one, like this kind of a format is beneficial for the shareholders to understand. So yeah, that's the challenge, is to not only get the work done, do the drilling, but also communicate your story to others and prospective investors. So that's the big one.
No, definitely. Now, going back to the projects, with drilling plan for both Rogers Creek and Centerfire in 2025, can you outline your strategy for maximizing the impact of these programs on overall company value?
Yeah. So again, I think it's the idea of making sure that you've got your homework done on all the projects. Drilling is a big deal, right? Drilling costs a lot of money, and it can make or break a project. If if you get good results, off you go. If you don't, then it kills everything. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that when we do get the drill on the ground, that we've done our homework. We've got all the information that we can to set the drill targets and so on. So that's why we really want to get on at Rogers Creek, because we've got everything in place. We've got all the data. We've done all the inversions and everything, and we're quite excited about getting on the ground and drilling there. Centerfire, I mean, we're excited about that because not just the numbers we've seen on surface, but also the potential of a long strike development of similar kinds of ore or mineralization. So those two things are those two projects are quite important for us to get going, and the challenge is to translate investor interest into investment into the company, and then that turns into dollars in the ground. So one goes after the other. So we'll work on all of that in 2025 to make sure that it happens.
You mentioned you have recently opened up a financing. Can you give us an idea of the terms?
Yeah, we did just before the end of 2024, and that was to take advantage of some flow through that was available. So we still have some flow through open, and that is a unit, a share unit at 4 cents, and it includes a half warrant that's exercisable at 7 for up to 2 years. And in that financing, we also had a non-flow through component, which is a 3.5 cent unit.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3.5 cent unit also has a half warrant exercisable at 7 cents for up to 2 years. So we'll probably have that open for a little bit longer. So if there is any interest from those listeners or anyone else, please get in touch with me, and we can get you set up.
Definitely. Well, Jeff, those are all the questions I have for you today. I'll pass it back to you for any closing remarks, and just to remind the listeners that this is being recorded, so please feel free to watch on YouTube afterwards. And if you'd like, we could pass along your information to Jeff here if you'd like to get in contact with him directly. But I'll leave it to you, Jeff, for any closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. And I think maybe what I'll do is I've got a small presentation here, just a quick summary of not only the projects, but also some of the other things that we're planning to do. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Just go through it very quickly here, and stand by while we put this up. And there we go. And I think it should be up and running there now.
Yep.
So it's just a quick presentation, kind of a similar one is available on our website if you want to have a look at that. There will be some forward-looking statements within this presentation, but as I mentioned in our talk, Kyle, that we're trying to keep our share structure quite tight, and you can see at this point we've only got 35 million shares outstanding, with some options and warrants, mostly at 10 cents. So they hopefully will be in the money later this year. And another important thing to know is their insider ownership is still relatively high, around 23%. The team here is myself and Shannon. Yannicka is our CFO, and our board is Darcy, Allison, and Sam, all excellent people and support the company quite well. Key points for exploration. I won't focus on this too much, but basically for us, and I think any investor should be looking at this too, is where is the jurisdiction? Is it a safe jurisdiction? You don't, the rules of engagement don't change. And well, that's why we like BC and Ontario and Canada. It's a great place to work, good jurisdictions. Commodities, well, we all know that the green revolution is really focusing on copper, lithium, and so on. We've tied into copper because BC and Ontario are well known for their copper and copper production. Geology, obviously, geology is important for us as well. We're going to go and find those deposits in the area that's most conducive for that. Quick overview of our projects. We have 4 in British Columbia, as mentioned, and here in the black bold are sort of the key points that we're going to be working on this year on each of the projects. So Rogers Creek drilling, Copper Plateau, the modeling, as I mentioned, target generation, getting ready for drilling, and may or may not be able to get to that this year. I'd like to. Fire Mountain, it's an earlier stage, as well as Bendor. So on the ground, boots on the ground work, more geophysics, a little bit more sampling and mapping to get us, really confident in what we've got and where we can drill down the road. And then in Ontario, the Center Fire, geophysics help funded by the OJEP program, and with determining drilling sites and drilling in 2025. BC project locations, just get in where you are in the province. Vancouver's here. There's a belt of rock we call the Cascade magmatic arc. It contains huge deposits, as you can see here. And Fire Mountain, Rogers Creek are here. Bendor is just north of Pemberton in this area here. So as you can see, lots of big deposits nearby. And why we're quite excited about the Rogers Creek project is because of all the work that's been done in the past, from soil geochemistry and stream sediment sampling, and even some historic drilling that we've been able to put together. And it shows that we've got a fantastic area that just is begging to be drilled here at our target number 1. Another thing to look at too is there's been some great numbers found on surface, like 23 grams per ton gold, 136 grams per ton silver, so some really nice numbers. So there's something under there, and we think we know where it is right now. Through this modeling that we've done, we've got a chargeability, IP chargeability anomaly with some resistivity associated with it, and even more importantly, a magnetic low. And all those components together really tell us the story about an intrusive porphyry system that's been altered and mineralized and just begging to be drilled. And the drill targets are these higher IP anomalies that you see in this image here. So 2 lobes of mineralization that we expect to intersect with our drill program in 2025. Now, quickly over to Copper Plateau. We like it. It's in this terrain called the Quesnel terrain. It's surrounded by mines, Copper Mountain Mine with Hudbay, Teck's Highland Valley Mine, and some historic work that's been done at Brenda and Craigmont, but also new discoveries like the one at Kodiak Copper's MPD project, which is basically our next door neighbor in this area. So excellent location. We've done a little bit of work. We see some good areas to follow up with some new drilling. But as I said, we'd like to tighten this up a little bit with a little bit more work before we get on the ground and drill. But you can see some of the numbers we have here at Copper Plateau. A focus maybe on this chart or this table on the right-hand side. And you can see there's multiple intersections of plus 1%, plus 2% copper equivalency. And what we've done is we've combined the copper numbers with the moly, gold, and silver. And there's some excellent numbers there. So you can see why we'd really like to get in here and follow up. And it looks like it's open, at depth and along strike. There's so much to really kind of come up with here. One last picture here at the Copper Plateau area. There's been some geochemistry done on surface, and it shows an extension of where the main drilling was done, which is in this area here, bottom right-hand corner, but there's so much more that needs to be looked at. There's been some early holes that were done with some shallow RC drilling. Some of them actually ended up in mineralization and were never followed up. So again, a really nice carrot to follow at Copper Plateau. And I always like to show some rock samples to show that, we've actually been on the ground here, but some compelling numbers here, 11.35% copper at surface. So we don't have to go down kilometers to find the porphyry system like a lot of the other deposits that are being discovered now. This is right at surface, and it includes a lot of moly, and moly seems to be a really good accessory mineral to discover and develop these days. Fire Mountain, back to this map here. We're just south of Rogers Creek. It's a similar kind of setting, porphyry system. We want to get on the ground because there are so many places to follow up. You can see we've done some work at Inferno Zone, but there's so many other areas that really need to be followed up. We're not sure which one is the best yet, so we'll do some work here, hopefully come up with some focus on drilling for 2026. So lots to do at Fire Mountain. This is just one of the areas that, we're quite excited about, is the extension of the Inferno Zone. So more work done there. And then finally at Centerfire, we've got the project area up here, and it's, as I mentioned before, it's along a regional conductor that's been identified from historic work, from government work, but we're in the same belt where there's a lot of discovery, a lot of new work being done, and with some decent success too. Heritage Mining is up in this area. They've had some good success. Next Gold contains this trend here, which has a number of deposits, including the Gold Lund and the Goliath, and they're working towards production at Goliath. And Dryden Gold has had some very good success. And what's more interesting, perhaps even, is the fact that there are major companies coming in here. I think Centerra Gold has done a deal both with Next Gold and with Dryden because of their land packages in this area. So really good. And Ashley Gold has got a couple of good projects tucked in here. So Centerfire has got some great potential. We've got fantastic mineralization. And this is an image here that shows these conductors trending along our project. So we've got a lot of information from this lower corner. We've got our main zone is where the mineralization has been found from our previous programs, but we really want to look at the extension of this with some detailed geophysics, just to see if there's any anything that's hidden there that we should be following up with, instead of just maybe focusing on what's been known. Let's see what else is out there that we'd like to pick up. So Centerfire Bendor, again, it's one that we haven't done a lot of work on, but it's a gold-centric project. We're going to do some work on the ground there, do some mapping and sampling. So in a nutshell, that's really where we're at. As I said, we've got lots of projects. We're raising money to do the work on them. And just as an aside, we'd certainly look at maybe a strategic alliance with one or more companies or partners that might consider, maybe a project-centric investment rather than a company-wide investment. So we're keeping the door open for that kind of thing. And even if we had a partner on one project, we've got 4 others that we can easily work on ourselves. So the door is open for any kind of possibility there. So that's it sort of for the quick overview, Kyle. So I'll give it back to you now, and if there's any questions from the audience there, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for the presentation, Jeff. Why don't you go ahead and share the screen again with the contact information while we do our close remarks
Okay.
here.
Yeah, let's do that.
So people can feel free to get in touch with you and the following email address there. But no other questions here, Jeff. So thank you very much for your time and the presentation, and we look forward to staying up to date with you as the year progresses. But if you have any closing remarks, now's the time.
Yeah, as I mentioned, if there's any interest in the financing, we've got that open for a little bit longer. PDAC is coming up just over a month from now. looking forward to getting on the ground there and meeting people in person. Just one note there, we've been selected as a exhibitor spotlight this year at the PDAC. So one of maybe a handful of companies that were identified by the PDAC as being, having a good product. One of the things that we'd like to show off at the PDAC is our development of a sort of a field-based exploration tool that hopefully will increase our ability to discover projects, but also reduce the amount of time and money needed to do these kind of things. So keep your ears open for anything to do with that. Hopefully we can talk about that a little bit more later on. And then numbers, like a phone number is there for me on the screen, email and website. And please feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Perfect. And thank you, Jeff. And thanks everyone for tuning in today.